Back here on First and 10. Today we're previewing Michigan State for part 2 of our preview. We just previewed Michigan. So let's just get into it. Let's talk about the Spartans. So last year, 2-5. Not a great year for MSU. 7th in the Big Ten East. But they beat Michigan and they beat Northwestern. So it was an up and down year. When they lost, it was typically embarrassing. But when they won, it was confusing because they won 2 games that they absolutely had no business winning. Reid, what was your take on this roller coaster season for Michigan State? And is it even possible to have a true takeaway from that season?
I mean, I think throughout the Big Ten East, that was the most confusing year we've had, at least in the era where the Big Ten East has existed, because there were just so many games where the team you feel like should win didn't. And I mean, I would say Michigan State I would argue that they had the 2 biggest upsets of the year last year. Maybe that Michigan game doesn't look like as big of an upset when you consider the way the rest of their season went, but that Northwestern win, that was surely the biggest upset. I think there's little question of that. And then the Michigan one, I would say, is second place. So on one hand, I think you could argue that Michigan State was a better team than their record showed and that they should have been 3-4, maybe 4-3. On the other hand, you could argue that they should have been winless because the 2 games that they won were kind of fluky. They never really had any sort of consistency. And, you know, that game against Iowa, I think, was one of the truest showings of the team they were. But yeah, it's so hard to draw a valid conclusion to that season because the Rutgers game was weird. Both teams were playing their first game under a new head coach. You know, the 2 games that really made, or the 3 games I'd say that made sense were the Ohio State, Indiana, and Iowa losses, because obviously those are the 3 teams. Those are 3 of the best teams in the conference. You wouldn't expect to beat them, but I don't know. I think we'd be able to draw a better conclusion if they had played Maryland, because that would be another team on the same level as them in terms of skill. Yeah.
Maryland's more talented.
I guess you're right about that. But a lot of the talent is young, raw talent.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
So I don't know. It is so hard to draw any kind of set in stone conclusion about who the 2020 Michigan State Spartans were, because like you said, it was a total roller coaster of a season that didn't make a lot of sense.
No, they get crushed by Rutgers week 1, then somehow beat their arch rival Michigan on the road, and then get destroyed by Iowa. Destroyed. Wasn't even close. And when they lost, it was ugly every time. But when they won, it had you scratching your head. Like what? So I guess they have the ability to pull off big upsets, but they also have the ability to lose in extremely embarrassing fashion. And they get Northwestern week 1. And I will tell you this about Northwestern Michigan State games is the team who you pick to win will always lose. Every time. Every time. It is always a weird, terrible, awful game that nobody ever has fun watching. It's a 9:00 Friday night kick, so it'll be the only game in town. I'll certainly be watching. I'm sure you'll be watching, Reid.
I mean, I wouldn't say that it's a terrible off-ball game. I actually usually like the Michigan State Northwestern game.
But it's terrible from a sense of – what I mean is it's terrible as in like nothing ever goes right for anybody. It feels like every possession for both teams is, are you kidding me? We threw an interception? Or how is it suddenly 40 and raining? Wasn't it just 70 and sunny? And we fumbled the ball. Like,
that's Big Ten for you.
That's
Big Ten football. And
it just means more. That is maybe, you know what? Maybe Michigan State Northwestern at 9:00 at night on ESPN. Maybe it would definitely be more of a Big Ten game for 9:00 at night on FS1. But a Michigan State Northwestern game where it's a rematch of an undefeated Northwestern team losing to the worst Michigan State team of my lifetime at 9:00 at night on a Friday. That is Big Ten football.
And I think with this Michigan State Northwestern game, it is always the worst team who wins. So that's why I marked this year. I would say, and we don't want to get quite into our schedules yet, but I think that Michigan State wins this one because I think Northwestern is yet again the better team.
I kind of think
but
so
you
too.
have to mark it as a toss-up. And I would say that the Northwestern Michigan State game is the one real good thing. I guess one of 2 good things because the Indiana-Purdue game needs to happen every year. It's the second good thing that's come from the East-West one randomly protected game in the schedule, because every year we're treated to this Northwestern Michigan State game that's always wacky.
Always gives you
There's
a
always
chuckle,
it
no
does.
matter what the result
You
is.
always get a good surprise out of this game. You never know what's going to come. And there's typically, back when Michigan State was good, Northwestern would pull off an upset. So I mean, I'm excited for that one. It'll be a fun first game of the season for the Spartans. But yeah, there's this. I would say Michigan State, along with maybe Rutgers and Maryland, is Michigan State's probably the hardest team to really preview this season.
I agree. But one more thing on this Northwestern Week 1 game, I feel like we never get late night chaotic Big Ten games. You know, it feels like other conferences they'll have an 8:30 kickoff every once in a while. I'm talking Eastern time, but the Big Ten, I feel like it never starts later than 7:30, so it never goes past midnight. But a 9 o'clock Eastern kickoff in Evanston, Central local time, but Eastern for Michigan State fans who won't be making the trip, and for people like me who live in the Eastern time zone, I feel like this game, even beyond typical Northwestern versus Michigan State weirdness, this game is going to get super weird. A Friday night, late night, it's not ending until like 12:30 at night.
I see a
It's
lot of
gonna
turnovers happening in this game.
it's gonna get weird at the end. There's gonna be a really stupid ending to this game, like a missed chip shot field goal, or an interception on the goal line, or there's going to be something that just leaves you like with your jaw on the floor. I mean,
Here's what I have to
I don't
say
know. It's
about
going to get
that,
chaotic.
because the Northwestern Michigan State game, there's some sort of divine football spirit or God that plays tricks on us with this game. And it's gotten to the point where we see it coming. And we know that every year there's going to be some funky voodoo going on in the Michigan State Northwestern game. So now we're over here predicting this. We know it's coming. So wouldn't it be the most Northwestern Michigan State thing ever if Northwestern were to just blow them out?
Are we
Or
overthinking
for there
this?
to be no crazy fumbles or missed chip shots, if they just consistently complete passes and don't fumble the football? Wouldn't that be the most Spartans Wildcats
It's
thing
like,
in the
wow.
world?
Ryan Helinski, 20 for 25, 250 yards, 2 touchdowns. Wow, a very solid game from the Wildcats, who won the game 24-17.
I'm just saying that
It'd be
is,
it'd be funny.
yeah, that's how this game
Maybe I'm
goes. Or it's not how
overthinking
this
it.
game goes, but it would
Maybe
be a
we're
nice
overthinking it.
spin
I
on
don't know.
the weirdness of this series.
Yeah, maybe
Um,
normalcy would be weird for this series. I think you're onto something.
yeah, but I think this Michigan State team, it's odd because I want to like them and I want to predict them to do good things because, I mean, as weird as last season was, and it wasn't a great year. I mean, Mel Tucker, he did show me something with the fact that they were able to win those two upsets. I like Mel Tucker at Michigan State for now. I think he's still got a lot to prove, and it is really his first true season as the head coach. So he's got a lot to prove, but I like Tucker. Um, I think they have an experienced O line. I like the receivers here, and I love Kenneth Walker III. I would argue he's coming in as a transfer from Wake Forest. I would argue he's one of the better backs in this conference because you look at it. I like the tape I've seen from him, and you compare him to the other Big Ten running backs, other than Mo Ibrahim and Tyler Goodson. It's not like this conference is stacked with amazing running backs this season. So I think he can really shine and stand out, maybe make all Big Ten. And I think that when you look at the quarterback position, it's going to be the running game that determines how good Michigan State is on offense. It's not like Peyton Thorne is going to be a game-changing playmaker, but I think it would be interesting to see. Peyton Thorne is a more mobile quarterback, so if he wins the quarterback job, I think we could see some good option plays with Walker and Thorne. But I don't think the Spartans are going to have a terrific passing game this season.
Yeah, me neither. I do like this running back though. He was great at Wake. I saw some of that tape too. But one thing I do like at Michigan State is the receivers. I think Jalen Naylor's a very good
I love Jalen Naylor.
receiver,
And I
and he gets
believe he
over.
reposted us on our Instagram story.
I believe he did once.
Some Michigan State player did. I think it was Naylor.
Yeah. He gets overshadowed by a lot of the other receivers in the Big Ten, and by the others, I mean the Ohio State guys: Olave, Wilson, Smith and Jigba, Fleming, Harrison Jr., by
Guys like Jahan
Freifogel,
Dotson too
by Dotson,
from Penn
by
State.
David Bell, by all those guys. And then there's Jalen Naylor, who's just quietly getting it done just as well as a lot of those guys are. He's very good. I don't think he's going to get the recognition he deserves at a national level or at a Big Ten level, just because Michigan State's not going to be very good. But he's great. And I think he's going to have a successful NFL career someday too. But the other receiver who I like at Michigan State is one game wonder Ricky White, the freshman who torched Michigan last year just to disappear for every other game. Can Ricky White come back? I don't know. I think he'll do great against Michigan. I know that, but will he do good against anybody else? Will he do anything against anybody else? Who knows? We'll
Maybe the
find out.
Northwestern game will be the game where he breaks out.
Yeah,
and then
that feels like a
disappears
big
again.
game for the Ricky White experience. I'm all in on Ricky White though. He showed me something in that Michigan game. Pushing my chips in on Ricky White. Let's go. I'm riding with Ricky.
All right. Yeah. But I mean, I think you look at this Michigan State offense, the biggest question mark. There's a lot of question marks throughout this team, but it's the quarterback position is the biggest one. You got Peyton Thorne going into his sophomore year. And he had some snaps last year. He's got a little bit of experience under his belt, but he really wasn't fantastic at all last year. And then you also have Anthony Russo coming in as a transfer from Temple, one of the more decorated quarterbacks in Temple's history. But I've watched the tape on him. I'm not a big fan of him. I don't love his throwing mechanics, and he's not as mobile as Thorne is. So it's by no means Thorne's job. He doesn't have the quarterback job locked up. Still very much a quarterback battle. If I'm Mel Tucker, and of course he's seen more of both of these guys than I have. I'm not day in, day out at the practice facility watching these guys. But if I'm Mel Tucker, I'm going to go with Peyton Thorne. But at the same time, if you have Russo come in, give Peyton Thorne some more time to learn from a guy who's got experience in college. Could work out from better in the long run, but I don't know. I feel like right now Thorne is what's better for this offense, especially when you have Kenneth Walker coming in. No matter how good I think Jalen Naylor is, Kenneth Walker is going to be the guy for the Spartan offense. So I think for Peyton Thorne to really embrace the running style that Michigan State's going to have this season, that's what's best for this team, I think, at the quarterback position. So I would go with Peyton Thorne. But like I said, by no means his job as of now. Still very much quarterback battle.
Lot to be seen here with this Michigan State team in practice and going forward. I mean, I don't know what to expect. Very weird team. It's tough to predict them. We're going to try and predict it anyway. Let's look at the schedule. So week 1, September 3rd, Friday night game at Northwestern. I'm going to say they win it just because they shouldn't. And I kind of believe in that weird curse of that game that the worst team always wins. I'm going to say win, even if I don't think they're better.
Yeah, I got this one as one of my many toss-ups this season. I'm going to go with the Northwestern win as well, or Michigan State win against Northwestern.
Yeah.
Apologies for that confusion.
Youngstown State, I think they win too.
That's no question. They got to beat Youngstown.
No question. Miami on the road, they lose, and it's not close. I think this one is ugly. Yeah.
I don't know about that. I mean, I have zero faith in the Miami Hurricanes. I think they win this game, but I don't have enough faith to say that 100% Miami is going to win any football game. I mean, of course, they're not going to go winless, but I can't put my full faith behind Miami at all.
If De'Aaron King is healthy and good, I'm going to say they can. I trust De'Aaron King a lot. I think he's a great quarterback. And this is a big road game too. Miami, their crowd leaves a lot to be desired just because it's so far off campus and in a terrible location, but it's still a road game against whether or not we want to admit it, traditional powerhouse program. Miami is a blue blood. They're Miami.
National eyes are going to be on this game.
Yeah, it's Miami. It's Miami. It's going to be a national TV game. It's week 3. Miami's still going to have expectations and hope at this point in the season, even if they don't beat Alabama, which they probably won't beat Alabama, even if I think they hang with Alabama more than people are giving them credit for. I don't see MSU coming out of Miami with a win. I think this is going to be I don't trust this defense yet. I think this defense needs an identity, and they don't have one. I think De'Aaron King runs wild.
All right. I'm actually going to let's come back to the defense point because I actually disagree with you, but let's move on to the schedule.
I don't think it's bad, but I think they need a little more seasoning. And I think that Northwestern game isn't going to test them enough. I don't think Northwestern has this they don't have an explosive offense that's going to test them. And they play an FCS team. So Miami is going to test this defense to their brink. So
for sure.
So
I'm not saying the defense comes up amazing in this game and stops De'Aaron King. I'm just saying this is a defense filled with upperclassmen or graduate transfers. They got Chester Kimbrough coming in to play cornerback. I really love Drew
Right.
Jordan
Yeah, they
playing
really
defensive
did work the
end. I
portal.
love the experience that these guys are bringing into the program. I think they're solid players. So you look at this is an experienced defense. It's not the type of Michigan State defense we've seen in previous years. Under D'Antonio, they had some fantastic defenses. That even when the team was doing poorly, opposing players would say that it was one of the best ones they faced all year. It's not quite that Spartan defense. But I think experience means a lot in a power conference. So I don't know. I wouldn't be bashing the
What
Michigan State
I'm
defense.
not
I
I'm
think
not
that,
trying to bash them. I
or I'm
think
not
they're
saying you're
talented.
bashing them.
No,
I'm
no,
just
no.
saying
I can
I
explain.
have more faith in them than you do.
My thing is, I think there's a lot of transfers in this group. I think you're going to need to mesh together. And obviously, they've had a real spring and summer to do so.
That's
But
true. It's true.
you need to play and you need to play and you need to, get that experience as a unit. And that's what finding identity is. It's finding identity as a team. It's all about the team here. So, well, I think they've got a lot of individual players who are talented, especially guys they pull out of the portal. Most notably, Quavarius Crouch, linebacker from Tennessee, who I think is going to be a superstar for Michigan State. I think he's probably their best player on their team, aside from maybe Jalen Naylor. They need to just mesh and become a better unit, and I think they're going to do a lot of learning in this Miami game. If the coaching is good, which I think it is, I like Mel Tucker. I think he's a good coach. It might not be a pretty game, and I think Miami's going to win this, and I think Miami's going to win it pretty handily. They should learn a lot from this game, and that's what good teams do is they learn from their losses, and I think they do, and I think they take this into their next game, Week 4 against Nebraska, and they learn how to defend a mobile quarterback. Obviously, De'Aaron King is much better than Adrian Martinez. He can throw, for one. Adrian Martinez can't. And they use that sort of knowledge that they learned from playing against a guy like De'Aaron King and apply it to an Adrian Martinez. And I think Michigan State comes out victorious over Nebraska.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it's hard for me to mark any games down as a W for Nebraska. Nebraska is the team I probably have the least faith in this season. So even an inexperienced or inexperienced but not experienced playing together Michigan State team, I think that they, like you said, they learn a lot in this game, or they will have learned a lot from De'Aaron King. And I think this Nebraska game couldn't be placed better on the schedule because I think it's hard to lose to Nebraska, but they still can learn a lot from playing them. So having this game early on, as opposed to playing Indiana in Week 4 or Maryland, one of these games that mean more, I think that'll work out well for Michigan State.
I agree. So looking at Week 5, they get Western Kentucky at home. Should win this, although Western Kentucky is not bad, and they brought in a lot of transfers. They pretty much rated FCS team Houston Baptist's entire program pretty much is at Western Kentucky now, which is interesting. But Western Kentucky is going to be okay. Michigan State should beat them. So at this point in the season, I've got Michigan State 4-1.
I mean, I think they end up going 5-1. I think they beat Rutgers the following week.
I don't think they beat Rutgers the following week. I've got Rutgers winning this one. So I've got them at 4-2. You've got them at 5-1. Then the next week they go at Indiana. I've got Indiana winning this one.
I got Indiana winning big again. I think Indiana gets big wins against both Michigan teams, especially since they're at home in this one. I don't think Michigan State holds much of a candle to them.
Spittoon stays in Bloomington. So I've got Michigan State at 4-3. You've got them at 5-2.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Spicy. Next week, Michigan Wolverines.
Well, we already went through this one. I already predicted a Michigan win here, so I can't change my mind there. Got to go with an L for the Spartans.
Yeah, so I'll go 4-4 for me, 5-3 for you. At Purdue, the Malik Carr game. Malik Carr, one of Purdue's gigantic recruits from a couple of years ago. He transferred to MSU, tight end, wide receiver, a big body on that offensive side of the ball. Didn't play a ton for Purdue last year, but I think he should play more for MSU this year. Apparently, he wants to play basketball too, I think was the rumor. So maybe he'll be on the basketball court as well. But maybe we see some of him this year. That's a name to keep some eyes on, is Malik Carr. I've got Purdue winning this game, so I've got Michigan State now at 4-5.
I do as well. I love this Purdue defensive line, and I think especially if Peyton Thorne is the quarterback, they really trouble him. I got to go Purdue here.
Yeah, so as well as the season started out for MSU, I've got it ending kind of poorly. Maryland at home. Maryland is a much more talented team, and I know Michigan State's at home. You know what? I'll go Michigan State. I'm going to take MSU here. This is a tough game for me. This is a toss-up. Do I like Maryland's young talent or do I like the experience of Michigan State? I think by this point in the season, Michigan State's defense will be very solid. I don't think the offense will be very good. So if the defense isn't all the way there and Talia and Rakim Jarrett are just having a field day, I don't see MSU keeping up. But if the defense is stout against a young, inexperienced Maryland bunch who most of their experience is from the COVID season of 2020, then I just don't know. I don't know if they can hang with a more grizzled Michigan State bunch that'll start to kind of fit together as a more cohesive unit because we talked about it already, the transfers on the defensive side of the ball. So I am going to pick Michigan State over Maryland, even if I think Maryland's the better team, and I really do like Maryland this season.
Yeah, I got to go for another toss-up. This is the games I've listed as toss-ups here are Northwestern, Rutgers, Purdue, and Maryland. This one I'll call a toss-up win. I think it's Michigan's sixth and final win of the season, or Michigan State's sixth and final win of the season. Apologies.
Yeah, so then the last two games at Ohio State, they won't win.
Nope.
Penn State at home. I'm not going to say
it's
they win.
Possible.
I think it's possible too.
It's possible they win, but Penn State's just the better team, straight up. And I can't see them dropping this one.
Yeah, me neither. So my final prediction for Michigan State is 5-7. I'll say the ceiling is 7-5. I'll say the floor is 4-8. 4-8 is my floor. So I think at best they end up in the Pinstripe Bowl. But at worst, they're sitting at home with a lot of thinking to do. And that's my prediction is that they go 5-7 and don't end up in a bowl.
I'm going to go ahead with a 6-6 prediction. I will say, you might call me crazy here, ceiling 8-4, floor 3-9. That's the thing is there's just so much unknown about this team. Like I said, it's the hardest team to predict this season.
A lot of toss-ups.
Big ceiling, big floor, or big difference between the ceiling and floor, big range here.
Yeah.
But I think in the end, they're at 500. They're sitting in the Quick Lane Bowl or the Pinstripe, I guess, Bowl, one of these mid-tier or low-tier Power 5 bowl games. But I mean, I think this is going to be a solid building block year for Mel Tucker. I think I don't think he'll get fired, even if they do go 3-9.
No way. No,
I think he's going to still be the Michigan State head coach the following season. I think it'll be a good year for him. Lots to build on. And I think especially if they get a bowl game win, we could see Michigan State climbing back to where they were years ago in the years following this season.
Yeah. Again, lot to be seen for Michigan State this year. A lot to prove. A lot of question marks. And looking at that schedule, a lot of toss-ups. A lot of games that they should be about even. And all those question marks for me on the offensive side of the ball. The defense, I think it's more of a known commodity, but we just have to see how it meshes together with all those moving parts. Offense, there are some questions, especially on the offensive line. We didn't even talk about. I don't trust this offensive line one bit. Even if I like the running back and quarterback is an issue too. The receivers, I think, will be good. But we just got to see how it plays out. I think this is going to be a pretty okay ball club, but it could go either way. It could be extremely a bowl game. On the one extreme, bowl game. On the other extreme, very bad. So I don't think they'll be as bad as last year. I think they get better, but to what extent, that's the question. I don't think they'll get embarrassed as many times as they did last year. I mean,
I think this is going to be a kind of low risk year from Michigan State because best case scenario, you're sitting here at 7-5, maybe even somehow 8-4, and all of a sudden you're way steps ahead, levels ahead of where you thought you'd be.
Right. And
worst case scenario, I think worst case scenario isn't even that bad for them because I don't think that anybody's expecting Michigan State to go and be this great team. And I think 3-9, that's kind of what a lot of people are expecting. 4-8, 3-9, people are expecting them to be bottom of the barrel Big Ten East. So even worst case scenario, I don't think is that bad of a scenario.
I agree.
And I would still be on board with Mel Tucker if they have a horrible year in terms of the record, because I think the future, there's a lot of potential here.
Yeah, if they go 4-8 or 5-7, but they get like an impressive win and they don't get blown out at least as many times as they did last year, maybe one blowout to Ohio State or Indiana or whoever, and one impressive win. I think that is a huge success for Michigan State, and I think that's a big step in the right direction. So lots to be seen from them going into 2021. Should be an exciting year for all teams, but Michigan State. Definitely, we're going to learn a lot more about this Mel Tucker team and what the Mel Tucker era is going to be for MSU in his first full season in 2021. So before we go, anything else from you, Reid?
Back on a point we made last episode, I think speaking of the Mel Tucker era, I think as long as Michigan State is in the Big Ten East, the Mel Tucker era is going to be one that's kind of like early Jim Harbaugh era, where no matter how you can be a great team, you're not going to do better than 10-2 or 9-3. But I think Michigan State is one of the teams that can benefit the most. I would say Michigan State and Indiana, maybe Maryland too, have the most to gain from the potential abolishing of divisions as the sort of landscape of college football changes. So I think that's something Mel Tucker might want to be rooting for because I think, like I said, I think Michigan State has a lot of potential, and I think this could be a great year to build upon. But there's a cap as to how good you can get when you play in the same division as Ohio State. So that is something for Spartan fans, I think, to keep their eyes on.
Yeah, conference realignment and conference shuffling of rules and such is going to be a topic for the next 4 or 5 years in college football. We've certainly talked it to death. But one more thing before we go. Reid, who are the next 2 teams we'll be previewing here on First and 10? I'm letting you pick right now. Who will the teams be?
Oh, I'm sorry. Your connection went out for a second. What did you just say?
Oh, sorry to our listeners at home if you couldn't hear it. I said, who will the next 2 teams be previewed on First and 10?
Let's go with Nebraska and Iowa, the Heroes Trophy.
Yeah, a fun pairing right there on the Big Ten West, our first 2 West teams. And when will that preview be coming out, Reid?
Soon.
Soon.
We'll just call it soon.
We'll say this week.
Let's do it.
We'll see you later this week, folks. Nebraska and Iowa coming next. Thank you for listening to this episode of the First and 10, and we'll see you next time. Bye.